All right, everybody, welcome back to Transformational Knowledge with TK, or Traversing Life with TK. Both of those are the same brand. That was what I was before. This is who I am now. It all is ever flowing. But today I have Brett on here, Medicine, and he deals with, a lot of different sound healing, yoga therapy, and basically any of those modalities to reaching your higher self and reaching that type of consciousness. And we were actually talking on here before about different aspects of spirituality and like the duality, and even with how spirituality has to have an enemy or just that opposing factor. And we were just going down basically the rabbit hole there for a second. But so we're going to get into it here. I'm going to have Brett introduce himself and like kind of what he does, and then we're just going to kind of have a little conversation about these different modalities and stuff. So Brett, you can go ahead.
Beautiful. Thank you, brother. Yeah, I'm just really grateful to be on today. And yeah, my name's Brett Ziegler. I make music as Medicine. That's medicine, capital S. And it's just all about, bringing that healing essence back to our music, through the frequencies, through sound healing, different instruments, using the voice. And I also um, teach yoga as well and have yoga therapy online classes as a 200-hour YTT. I've been on the yogic path for about 10 years and just diving deep into spirituality, diving deep into my own, personal healing and integration path. And I'm just, grateful to be a part of this thing, man.
Well, me as well. Thank you so much. And so I guess to start off, I wanted to get your perspective on what do you think like the origins of like sound healing is, because
Mm.
using that frequency of your voice or using instruments and stuff, like I actually had a conversation with my friend the other day about what I believe is like the origins of sound healing, but I wanted to get your perspective first before
Mm.
I say mine, and then kind of just have our back and forth.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, if we want to look just culturally in general, we can see sound as like the communion, like the tribal communion, ancestral chanting to drumming, just connecting with the resonance of nature. Sound is everything. And in the yogic tradition, they saw the primordial sound as Om, or everything manifesting out of the sound of Om. And through that sound, every other sound manifests. So to to that perspective, essentially, where it comes from is in Nada yoga, which is the yogic term for sound healing. Essentially, there's roots, so thousands of years ago, they were using specific frequencies, specific instruments, specific um tones of the voice, and this language as well, which is in the Sanskrit language. At least this is from where I practice from, and this may not be the deepest origin, because really we could go all the way back to the word, and the word was God, the original source. That's what the Om is really saying, that the word is the creative spark of God, meaning words, vibrations of the sound coming out of, projecting into existence. So if we really want to go back to the source is sound. It is sound healing. God is the frequency of love generating all life into existence, and that is, so that's the roots. But in terms of being able to, so we have different frequencies that can heal the body. We have different frequencies that work on specific chakras. And we have, using the mantras, or the voice, which is, our
Mm-hmm.
English language is a mental language, meaning that the words we speak have an idea attached to them. They don't necessarily have, and some of the words do, like, if you go into Latin and you start to learn etymology, you start to see the connections in all these languages, and there's nothing wrong with the English language, because we're using now. But in terms of these chants, like Sanskrit is specifically activating different pieces in the body. We have, 72,000 nadis, which are energy channels. We have the
Mm-hmm.
seven main chakras, and then we have all these more individual chakras as well. So every sound, every syllable, every, you know, vocalization we can make is has healing potential for the body. and then we can get into putting our intentions along that. Now we have more science and stuff that talks about that. I won't go too much more into it, but yeah, that's like we could see it as the root cause of all creation, and that anything out of balance within the body, or within our minds, within our energy fields, it's usually can be fixed. And well, I shouldn't say usually, but if you're not receptive, it won't work. But
Right.
if you're receptive to the frequency can literally retune you quicker than almost anything on the planet, because it's exact. It's what we could call God math versus man math.
Right.
And there is this perfect design, to ourselves, to our being, our body, our mind, all these layers. And if we could just tune into the frequency, literally like the note, the hertz exact, even, tuning with different frequencies, then we can access that vibration. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't want to make it
Yeah.
too complicated, but we could go for too long on that. But yeah.
So, like that right there kind of sparked. So, I was watching this video the other day, and people were calling Terrence Howard this kook, this crazy guy, because he was talking about harmonic wave resequencing. And the
Mm,
way he explained it was every part of the human body, everything about us
mm,
correlates to a certain note, correlates to a certain frequency. And it all comes
yeah.
together to make that perfect song, that perfect music. Now, the
Hmm.
reason why things like go wrong or change is because the way he put it was like there's a generator over there that is putting out a frequency that changed. He said like, so say you were resonating at an F over F sharp, but now you're just at an F. He's like, so
Mm,
now that rolls on itself, and then it puts the whole song out of harmony, out of the proper
mm,
frequency. And he was trying to go into like trying to make this device that will help, you know, put your frequency back on its regular vibration. But
yeah.
that would spark that up for me. But I was
Mm,
going to talk about, so when I was talking to my friend the other day about like the origin of sound healing, and we were
yeah.
talking about the word, and and how your voice and doing different tones and different things were how we communicated, and not even just how we communicated, how we put energy, throughout the system around us, how it changed things around us. And then
Yes.
she was asking about, so when people do sound healing as of today, using instruments, using drums, using tongs, tuning forks, and different things, she was like, well, what are they doing? I was like, well, pretty much they're trying to imitate, nature. Like we had the word, and that was how we put out the frequency. But then when you think about people like, oh, if they got sick, it wasn't that they no, yeah, they would put out words and do different frequencies with their tone. They were like, go sit underneath this tree in the middle of a storm. Why? Because the wind rustling the leaves, the branches moving, were making certain sounds, certain frequencies, certain vibrations that produced a healing frequency. And then they're like, you know what? That works. So
Mhm.
why can't we make a tool that imitates that? So I was like, if you go past the word and then go later on afterwards, I was like, it was all nature
Yes.
stepping on the ground, that drum from that harmonic frequency of hitting the ground with your feet, or
Hmm.
from the animals running, creating that that vibration in the ground, going through the plants, going through a lot of stuff, because she's a plant healer and she does healing through plants and plant spirits and stuff. So I was talking a lot about plants at the time, but at the same time I was like, those were like the original like sound healers, besides people and other beings and stuff that were here. If you want to go into all that, but I was like, plants were like some of the original sound healers. They used their tools, their leaves, their branches. You know, they waited till the thunder came so that they could, create a certain type of vibration. They made certain things going on to heal you. I was like,
Yeah.
the animals did the same thing. When they're hurt, they put out a certain frequency. It's not to call for help, it is, but it's also to release that energy out of them. Like there's all kinds of different like I was like, the mentality and the usefulness of the sound healing has changed so much over the years. I was like, but those were like the original ways of using sound, of making sound to heal people. And now
Mm.
it's developed to where it is today. We have all these different instruments and different things that we use for sound healing. And I was like, it's a beautiful thing. Like, and I'm not an expert in all that. You know,
Mm.
I've been interested in, the tuning forks. I've been interested. I can't remember the name of this instrument, but it's like this like dome type thing, and it has like little holes, and like you just tap on it. Uh, but
Like the tank drum.
yes,
Yeah, those
and
are
like
amazing.
things like that. I was like, these things are like so amazing in how they resonate frequency and how they heal. And
Mm.
I just kind of wanted to get your like opinions on like whether or not we should go back to using like those natural types of sounds of like with the nature, or like how do you feel about us changing it to using these tools? Like, is it good, is it bad? Even though I don't really like using those terms, but a lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah,
want to hear that
for
type
sure.
of. Yeah.
Contrast, absolutely. Yeah, just starting off that point with nature, I love that you brought it because like it popped up for me, but it wasn't like if you listen, nature's always singing. The birds, the river, every sound in nature, the wind. If you really tune into that, I just made a little post on Instagram the other day about that, about how that's a meditation. Just tune into that, and that will literally can start healing you. But yeah, when it comes to like using instruments, it's like we really are just imitating all these different sounds of nature, because we can't necessarily create something new, but we can, you know, um, use what's there. So I don't think there's a problem with using, all these sounds, even digital sounds, in terms of like music production and all that stuff. Being a producer, I went into the game like wanting to be just like only organic and only acoustic and only this kind of sound. And then as I got into it more, I realized like, well, if technology really, is able to help us with access these frequencies too, is it really, even the right frequencies with bass music and techno music, if they really tuned it, could be very healing, you know what I mean, what people
Hmm.
would consider not so natural of music. There's a reason why people are drawn to that bass music, you know what I mean, it shakes certain things up inside of you. It like literally helps liberate energies. So I think, in terms of seeing the ancients, it was all about the voice. It was all about just pure resonance, and you didn't need anything outside of yourself. I think that approach is beautiful. It's very purist, but at the same time, we have that innovation of human spirit. I think that is also a gift of, that should be cherished. And exactly, like use the tools, you can use the guitar, because I started on the guitar. Like your guitar can become a sound healing instrument, your piano, any instrument really. Like don't limit yourself to like I have to have this singing bowl and go ooh, all the time.
Hmm.
Like you could be vibing, you could be rapping, you could be, you could be getting into the energy and really, not so like I'm that type of, but I try to, stay alchemizable and really work with all the energy that's available to us. I think some people will resonate more with acoustic instruments, and that's awesome. I think some people will resonate more with, that more digital meditation music that's more background and etheric and just pads and real soft and
Hmm.
because those, but personally, I like I said, I just like to rather than contrast, use all everything we have available. We're in 2023. We're not in,
Right.
caveman times anymore. Let's use this stuff. Let's amplify the frequencies with the technology, because I can get on my computer and I don't have six hands, but I can play six instruments and put it on my computer. And now you have a full meditation with all those different layers to activate all the chakras, and not just, and then still be able to just kick back and sing a song on the acoustic, and that be a healing experience. So yeah,
Hmm.
just as a musician, I learned to weave that mentality together. But just to end it on that.
Okay. And I kind of lost myself there for a second, but and not
Oh,
lost
we're good.
myself,
Yeah.
but went into it. But
Yeah.
so I actually had somebody comment one day about, you know, oh, like using these like synthesizers and stuff like that were actually they actually used the term blasphemizing, like basically blasphemy of
Mm,
sound, of that
yeah.
sacred healing. And
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with it. Like
Mm,
it's just a tool. It's just a tool that we use on the path. It's
yeah.
not necessarily good or bad. It's how you use it, what you're using it for, because
Mm,
what is good and bad. But you know,
mm,
they were like, it's basically
gotcha.
blasphemy of sound healing. And you
Mm,
just said it right there. It's like, it's not that it's blasphemy. It's like, we're in 2023 now. We have different tools, we have different technology in order to use these things.
mm,
And I don't know. It's just interesting how so many people put a bias on what can be, you know, for sound healing. What is natural
mm,
sound? It's like, yeah, there is a difference between natural sound and artificial sound, but it's all sound. It's
mm,
not like it's, its own thing,
mm,
but it's so much separation with the ideas of it.
yeah. Mm.
And I'm not sure exactly where I was going with that, but it gets,
No, I love yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, once it hits your ears, like they don't know the difference. That's the truth. Like I mean, your body can tell the frequency, but it's like and I think those people like have a good heart in mind because a lot of the sound healing music really is just someone that was very lazily playing on a keyboard and not really putting intentional layers of like they can say it's 528 hertz and it's just 440 hertz and it's not even in key, it's not in tune with these frequencies. So I get what those people are saying. I don't want to bash anyone though and say one tool is better than the other or one form of it because it's like literally once you're it's just a perception if it's good or bad. But exactly, if the way your energy receives it, if it's working for you, go with that frequency. Don't go with because it's like when in ancient Egypt, like the women came out and they made a sistren and they start activating people's kundalini, and they're probably like, "Oh, you demons!" Like they're
Hmm.
trying to shun them too, and they were like activating kundalini. They made an instrument, the sistren, and it was like a shaker, like a rattle, but it was to
Hmm.
imitate that rattle of the snake and that rustling of the wind sound because that brings the energy up the spine, and they knew that technology by observing nature. So then therefore they're like, oh, nature does this thing, we can put these tools together and now we can access that vibration at will without even and be even more intentional with our sound healing. So to be able to really tap into all these frequencies, like the more the better. And that's the fusion like of where we're at now and like uncovering the ancient spirituality or the esoteric. At least that's how I see it, is like we're bringing back that ancient, but we're not like going back to like it being primitive. We're advancing with it into a new way where now we can interact with the technology and not be well, hopefully that's the route we take as humanity because we
Yeah.
can't we can speak for ourselves, but humanity's gonna do what they're gonna do. I'm not worried about all that though. But we're gonna do our part to make sure that what we bring is in that resonance, and that we work with everything in this time, that we reach as many people as possible. So that it means like sometimes I'm like on an acoustic mantra with singing bowls and tempura is awesome. And if I get on a rap beat and tear it up or make a metal song, I'm not going to limit myself to those frequencies of expression. When actually, when I tap into all those, I feel more sound healed. I feel more chakras activated. I feel more um, balanced, even, you know what I mean? Because like that's like the love and light mentality that we get. Like you have to just sit here with the singing bowl and that is a frequency. Like you need that stillness. You need that
Hmm.
pure tone frequency. You need to be able to just tune to one note. Like get all the music and the words out of your head and just tune to that one. That's why the mantras are so good. It's a repetition to get you into a certain frequency. So now you chant, Om Namo Narayanaye, Om Namo Narayanaye, Om Namo Narayanaye, and you get into this frequency. And with that chant, you block out all the so anyways, just to kind of, I don't know where that was going, but just to give an example of like it's like sometimes you need the simple, sometimes you need the whole track where you got all the instruments playing. It's a symphony, it's an orchestra, it's moving, it's got different layers, different textures. So yeah, just anyone out there, definitely don't limit yourself when it comes to this stuff. I think that's always the greatest rule, is to not have a rule about it, but to, have fun, experience new things. When you can experience all these parts of yourself and all these frequencies, and embracing the new technology and the new age, if you want to call it that, it is a new age, it's a new day, it's a new, every day is that. So why
Mhm.
not make the best of that energy?
Basically tying it all in, being like making it more comprehensive instead of just
Mhm.
limiting ourselves to one aspect of it.
Yes.
Okay. And hmm, that's a lot to think about right there. Kind of got me,
Mhm.
going down the rabbit hole in my head. But but with all this new age technology and stuff, because this is what people have been asking about, is the way we go about, our sound healing today, and trying to incorporate those ancient modalities of healing.
Mhm.
So, at least from my perspective, because I've been getting a lot of like random questions, and I'm gonna put this out there, guys. No, some of these questions aren't coming from physical beings. So, but these are questions that I've been receiving from people's higher selves and different stuff as I've been talking with people, because that's something that I've been connected to recently. But these are questions that people are asking, but not asking at the same time. But I received this question where they were like, as we were tapping into these ancient modalities of sound healing with the modern technologies and stuff, basically, like, are we still getting like the essence of the sound healing, or are we changing it to a point where it's like, obviously it needs to adapt to our current times, but are we changing it so much that we're missing out on the essence of what that sound was meant to do? Like, are we just basically making up things as we go along? And my viewpoint of it was like, no. Now there are people out there who we're not sure exactly what they're doing, like you said, lazily going on there and kind of just making songs, making different things to say that they're doing the healing, which it does heal, it does help. But there comes to a certain point where you have to actually, how do I put it, incorporate those ancient modalities. It's not that we're losing track of it. It's not that we're, like the one person said, no, making blasphemy of it.
Mhm.
It's the essence of things changes. It's
Yeah.
not that it stays the same,
Mhm.
because energy is always changing, always flowing, and always incorporating what's around it and changing it to a new form. Now, will it have similar themes? Yes. Will it have similar like teachings? Yes. But when you get down to the essence of things, you can't be like so stuck into one idea of like, this is how it is. When you play this note, this is what it does. Because no, 100,000 years ago, we played let's just say, the C note. No, somebody played a C note 100,000 years ago. It had a different healing. It had a different purpose. And because it is not because the note was different, you got to look at it as everything was different. The
Mhm.
whole system, all the frequencies were vibrating at a different level. The way the
Mhm.
C note vibrated and traveled, it had to travel differently because it was traveling through those different waves and frequencies. And then
Mhm.
now what we do, the C note is traveling through the frequencies and stuff that's here now. So it's not
Yeah.
like we're blasphemizing it or we're doing that, but we're adapting to the current times. At least that's what I think. But I want to get your opinion on kind of like that as well.
So it's like I want to say yes and no a little bit because it's
Okay.
like it is like that seeing it from how do I put this? It's like I thought I had something good, but no, it's like it really makes sense when I really like the way you put it, that it really is the way we receive it. And any time we put like a mental concept onto like just what already is, like we're trying to, we're kind of limiting what it can do just naturally. So I definitely agree with that. As I found, okay, sometimes I work with this frequency and it feels good for my chakra, and then there's other days when like that frequency is not working for that chakra or that energy, and it's like, so who's to say that only this frequency hits this chakra? Because if you record, now that I record music, what something interesting is when you play one note, there's what's called overtones and there's undertones. So one note isn't just one note, it's actually all the frequencies being played in different octaves, up and down, from what we can visibly hear, 20 to 20,000 hertz essentially. um, and that's an
Okay.
interesting thing to think. So what I'm getting with that is that essentially that, to like you're saying, to say that what it was for them then is going to work the same now, maybe not. We may even be in a different resonance of consciousness where our chakras shifted up a note, or they shifted up an octave, or whatever, however you want to look at that in terms of, and I'm not saying that's fact. I'm just saying, conceptually, like just to imagine that, that exactly
Right.
there is, it's already, so it's like they're fixed, and it's also fluid because we are the ones influencing the frequencies. It's like, if the with the modern sound healing, I feel like maybe a lot of people are missing the mark because, and this is my opinion, so I don't want to, but also like a lot of sound music researchers have found that the frequencies that we're tuned to nowadays, not that they're the wrong frequencies or that they're this and that, but we chose a frequency tuning 440 hertz that is slightly off center from nature. And this is literally causing the frequencies to do this, well, like this jagged nature. And
Hmm.
it's like you get close, and then it causes this over here, and it's like this chakra gets this, but then it's like it's causing a blockage down here. And what they say, so I go the full nine, and I try to really, tune the frequencies and learn the frequencies and the resonances. And I've noticed ever since I've done that, I can only take so much 440 hertz frequency music before I start to feel my chakras getting into like a certain skew. And then I'm like, okay, so I have an app where I tune it to 444 or 432. So this is like, even on my phone, I'm using the technology, but I have an app that can tune the frequency of all the music I have downloaded back to the natural frequency and resonance. So um, that's an interesting little note to throw in there. But yeah, I'm not sure if I answered that well. If you want to maybe clarify and just kind of help me solidify that point.
I actually felt like you answered that really well. Like,
Okay, cool.
and for all my viewers out there, like whatever we talk about on this show and on this podcast or wherever you're viewing it, like don't take this as, oh, this is fact. This is the only way. Things are going to change. You're going to have your perception on it. And the way every person explains something is how they perceive it. And whether or not it resonates with you, no, is up to you. It's up to your spirit. It's up to your consciousness of how you're moving on your path. Now, some people might disagree with you, and that's okay. Now, when you start to disagree with it, and because I'm not going to tell you not to disagree with it. If you disagree with
Mhm.
anything that is said, look within yourself to see why you're disagreeing with it. Because it still may not be true for you even coming years from now. But the reason why it's not agreeing with you is the right path for yourself. And you have to be able to see that. And this is like even going with how spirituality, with those like having that enemy and the other things, it's like when you hear that contrasting ideal, you are able to really truly find where your ideals come from. So
Yeah.
anybody out there listening, take that to heart. Like that's one thing that I'm going to say, some people like, oh, well, you tell us, you don't have to take it as a fact, but this is a thing that take that to heart. There's going to be contrasting ideas. There's going to be things that you resonate with. Find out why, because that
Mhm.
why is that question that's going to lead you to where you're supposed to be. Whether it's a conflicting idea with what I believe in, what Brett believes in, what somebody else believes in, it doesn't matter. You have to find out that why. But yeah, that was just something that just came through real quick. But um,
No, I totally just commend that. And exactly, it's all of our interpretations and everyone's, what we could say, perspectives matter. The more people we have sharing the valid, and not trying to draw too many conclusions, but seeing all the options we have. I think that's what makes diversity. It's what makes humanity beautiful. It makes spirituality beautiful. It just makes life beautiful, and it makes music beautiful. That's for sure too. Like, I wouldn't be the same if I would have only stuck to what I thought medicine music was supposed to be when I started out, which is like, oh, I'm gonna have to do it this way. And it's like, if I start bringing out these things, maybe they won't like it as much. I had to let all that go, and then I realized it's like oddly, it's when I started like listening to a little more hip hop and like letting in some of that other influence of other cultures and reggae music and Rastafari reggae, and not the Cali reggae, but the real Rastafari and the real Jamaican reggae, and just getting into those roots of different cultures, and then Indian classical music. And you hear all these different cultures expressing so many palettes, and all of them have this devotion of just service to spirit, service to source, service to humanity, and they're pouring their love into that. And if you feel
mhm,
that in praise and worship music, if you feel that resonance, that's the sound healing. That's where you're going to get the most healing. So there is no limit. Like, I think Christian worship music can be sound healing if you know how to tap into it. But that's
right,
me. It might not work for you, and that's cool with me. I'm not gonna, but like, I might say try it out, because you could experience something that you never experienced before. So,
yeah,
but yeah, that's with all of it. It's like we got to just keep that openness, and I think that overall will just make everything clearer.
yeah. Well, we're going to switch gears, not totally, because we're still going to be talking about an instrument, but this instrument is the human body.
Mm.
So, you know, you're, yoga therapist, and you've actually done a lot of research and actually experienced a lot of this. Now,
Mm.
I've done it a little bit, but I haven't experienced it nowhere near the amount that you have. So, I wanted to get kind of like your perspective on what is yoga, and not even just like what is yoga, like from your perspective, what is the yoga practice, how it relates to spirituality.
Mhm. So yeah, even just with that first note of like seeing the body as divinity, seeing the body, this experience that we're having, that we are God embodied, we are divinity, spirit, source, whatever, universe, the stars, all of that. We're all of that in these bodies, experiencing it from these individual perspectives. And yoga is that path of having that divine realization within the body, not waiting necessarily for just for the end of your life to realize that we are divine, but it's about bringing that divinity down into the human experience and then expressing that through the body. So we have, various layers to yoga that we can look at. And, we have the asana, the movement, which is what most people think yoga is. This is kind of the category that's been put to now is, cute girls doing stretches and this, and
Right,
forms and postures. And that's such a small piece of yoga, essential, but that was like the starting. So once you the point of that is you see that through movement, not just through a silent meditation, but through moving the body you can activate that divinity. This is awakening the seven chakras, this is awakening the kundalini on just the most essential level of what yoga is. This is the body is designed with these energy centers, with these frequencies, as if you will, that through it rather than against it, where some spiritual paths will deny the body. They'll say there is no, you can't use the body, you can't love the body, you can't have sex, you can't eat good food, you can't drink alcohol, you can't do a damn thing, and that's, there is a path to that, and that's, the most extreme path of yoga, which is brahmacharya, which is where you give it all up and you go straight, home. Now, where I
Hmm.
come from is tantra. So tantra is all about embodying that source. So like we aim in our path to be detached from the world just as much as a brahmacharya would be, while at the same time fully in it, fully giving our all to humanity, fully giving our all to whether it's our job, our family, embodied in this body. And then you realize everything has the potential to be a spiritual awakening for you. Every so and sure, I've been doing, 10 years of the postures and the breathing and the meditation, and then getting into, the mantra and the nada, which is the sound healing side of yoga, which is when really you start to activate chakras and third eye and higher perception and all that stuff, which is it's a beautiful thing to be able to have all that. But at the end of the day, what comes back to me is like, how can I be a better person? And that's by like, using using our life energy, using what's right here, right now, and it's like it takes spirituality. I know people think yoga, because a lot of people use it as a bypassing technique now. You can't yoga your way out of your problems, you can't downward dog or whatever you well, your way out of the problem, because the downward dog wasn't the actual yoga. Yoga means union, to unite yourself with the divine, to be one with the divine, to be yoked, as Christ or Jesus spoke of it, is to take of my yoke, to be united with that source, to realize that you are one with that source. And that is not like the mind thinks that, and then it, like, tomorrow it's going to say, oh, I hate myself, oh, I this, I that. The mind fights. So we have to tune the body. We come back to the body, because the mind likes to fight and try to think it's this or that, or put limits on what the body can do. But tantra and yoga really gives us that experience. So if we have, you know um how can we look at this? And there's so many ways we could look at it. So many practical ways of, like, seeing how sex on one frequency can be very, a very overpowering energy if we let lustful urges control our lives. But if we suppress that energy, we literally are suppressing our life force, our actual ability to create, which is the sexual energy, which is the kundalini, when you actually learn to cultivate that energy and raise that energy. And that's where some tantric practices come in, is learning how the body works on those deeper endocrine glands, which is, for like guys, is like learning to conserve your ejaculation, your semen, basically, like semen retention, as it's called nowadays. It's not about necessarily no fapping and all that stuff, which is the suppression, which is like, okay, if you're a monk and you're going to go out in the mountains and do that, that's how you do that. But if you're not going to live that path, we want to live embodied. Like, we want to experience all these layers, or even money and financial stability. We don't suppress money, because money's not the problem. It's our mentality. It's like how we're using it. It's how we're letting all these corporations have all the money, when it's like all the spiritual people had the money. Like, we'd be living it up, right? We'd be building some real shit together. So it's like we learn, this is like the thing. And it's like yoga's not just about like drifting off into that pure bliss and that samadhi, which is beautiful. And I love that. And meditation is every day for me. It's not negotiable. Like, that's what helps me tune in, is to just be still and you know, know who I am, essentially, know.
Hmm.
And when we tune into that, through the body, and life becomes an extension of our spirituality, rather than we need to escape to our spirituality, which is kind of the perspective that yoga's been put into. Oh, it's this trendy thing and you do it for these benefits and all these things. And that's like what the mind likes to do, is look at, that, and that's okay. But really, like, it's it's about facing all those things. You know, it's about facing the human experience. Like, wow, we have this limited time on this earth and it's beautiful and it's a gift. And we have all these, we can love, we can dance, we can sing. You know, those are the chakras right there. Loving, singing, the throat, you know, dancing, the root and the sacral, like just using the body, you know. So it's
Mhm.
like I could give everyone like this is the specific things that you do in yoga and like all that masculine stuff, but that's like the weaving of the tantra is that, you know, we have exact tools which get us exact results, and that's our meditations and our asanas and our mantras and all that good stuff, and it's time tested. You know, yoga is time tested. There is, you could say it's a belief system. People want to say, oh, that's demonic, and oh, that's this and it's these, you know, and it's like, you know, it's that's where, you know, that split comes from. Is But really, you know, it's like it's real science. It's very simple. It's like you do this thing and you get the result. Like, you know,
Right.
it's like, do you, and if that doesn't work for you, then, you know, just experience the body as divine. Just pray to God in everything you do. Just try to see God in the mailman when you got the mail and you said hi. And, you know, when you go to the store and you check out, smile to the lady. Don't, like, you know, give her a bad look if you can. And if you're having a bad day, you know, do your best with it. But, you know, it's
Right.
like, I'm generalizing to bring us back to that point that, like, this human experience, this is yoga. It's
Okay.
spirituality and the human, this is the yoga when they come together. So just even like why people do this namaste, it's because it's the left and the right coming together. It's
Okay.
the physical and the flesh and the spirit uniting again.
Hmm.
And in that state, you know, everything's possible.
See, I wouldn't have thought about it that way. And that's
Mm,
even because like recently with my meditations, so I do my what people say normal meditations, you know,
mm,
at the morning and night and throughout the day whenever I feel like it.
mm,
But I've been called more recently to, I guess, what people would call like, I guess, a walking meditation. But
mm.
it's where I go about my day, but everything I do, every movement I make, even it's not, well, obviously you can't, well, you can, but you know, it's not every thought that I have, but I'm looking at it. And every emotion that I make, everything that I do is part of the meditation, part of like tapping more into the spiritual side as I go about doing whatever. You know,
Mm.
I could be playing with my nephew. I could be talking with my mom. I could be out walking. I could be at work. I could be out there, you know, doing whatever I'm doing. But as I'm doing it, always basically letting that be a medium to finding myself more and understanding more about what's going on. I'm sorry, I'm just getting a whole bunch of notifications.
You're
I
good.
didn't realize I didn't realize my computer does that. Uh,
No,
okay.
you're you are spot on there, but that is the real yoga. You know, that is the experience of yoga, not the practice of like I said, you can do all these things and they will give you results, and that's great. But once you get into that repetition enough, it becomes the living experience of like, okay, each moment, like, oh, was I in my head, or was I really like present when I was walking around that corner and I kind of like bumped my shoulder into the wall, you know what I mean? And then you start to realize, oh, I'm rushing all the time, you know, like that's a yoga. That's an observance that you just made of a behavior that you were doing unconsciously. And now because you're aware of your body, you're aware of how you're moving, you're aware of your energy, you can start to say, okay, when I do that, slow down a bit, you know what I mean? And that's a form of yoga. So I think that's really just profound to hear that from you, even though, like I said, you don't have to practice any of this stuff to access yoga. It's it's a direct, but there you're already tapped in spiritually, so you're experiencing yoga. You know, that's it's like
Okay.
there's so many ways to get there. You don't have to do the stretches to get there. That's why I was saying even asana is like a limited way to look at it, because you could do no asanas. There's some of the greatest, you know, sages and saints from India. They just, you know, spoke of that oneness and lived in it, and you know, and we're just, I guess, I don't want to say just good people, but they were, great people, truly, but
Mhm.
um just by living in that experience, not by like how much they did. So I think that can be what blocks a lot of people or makes yoga scary. It's like, oh, I have to do all of these things. And it's like, you can. And I would recommend them for the right people, that you do a little bit of everything each day, from seated meditation to a little bit of postures, a little bit of chanting or singing, a little bit of walking out in nature or just getting out of the house and, just getting to observation and just reflection and that body awareness throughout your day. And then in your conversations, how you're responding to other people's energies. Were you in a good state and then you started talking to someone and now you're feeling off? Like that, just you become sensitive to other people's energies, but you also realize through yoga, you don't have to react to it. You can still stand in your energy, even if someone's coming with that opposition energy, if we want to look at it from that without seeing it. Like once you overcome that as an opposition, you realize even those moments of like struggle or like friction that we have throughout the day, those are some
Mhm.
of our most powerful moments to practice our spirituality as an embodied being, as a true yogi, meaning that we choose our choices. We don't let the choices always be chosen for us. And that doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. But perfection is knowing that we we can always choose that non-dual reaction. So in
Okay.
it's all about seeing Shiva and Shakti and Tantra, but they're always one. We're experiencing them as separate, but in reality they were always one, because even man can't live without woman and woman can't live without man, not on the necessarily just the physical level, but inside of the man is the woman and inside of the woman is the man, and this is the reflection. This is like the divine dance of that duality, where duality actually becomes oneness.
Right.
So that's without going too far into the depths and the philosophy of tantra. That's the essential purpose of it, is to get to that realization of non-dual existence, that we exist simultaneously spiritually as we are embodied human, and not like just once we leave here we're going to get to go be spiritual, but that
Right.
we bring. And most of spirituality nowadays is more about that. It's more, on a watered down level. But even when we're talking about some of the sound healing stuff, it is a little bit watered down compared to those roots. But still, the essence is there if we're willing to unpeel peel back those layers. So, yeah.
Right. Man, that that just put a whole lot of stuff up there. Like, not to switch subjects or anything, I was thinking, when you're
Mm,
like, that combination of the masculine and feminine,
yeah.
as one, and then also, the spiritual and physical, bring it together, for your body. Like, even when you're saying you don't have to do those motions, but those motions might help, it
Mhm.
during certain situations.
Mhm.
It, I don't know why, but I really started to think about the Ankh, and
Yeah.
like,
Beautiful. Wow.
so, like with the Ankh, like, people understand that, because even when you look at, the symbols of what's masculine and feminine, the Ankh is
Mhm.
both of those symbols put together. But then
Yes.
if you go deeper and you start, when, some people are like, oh, because it's like the key of life, because it
Mhm.
is a key. It's like it's the key to your spirituality, key to mentality, key to the
Mhm.
physical body, because it's representing all those different aspects in one. And
Yes.
it's not like, so I had this lady one day, because I always keep this little Ankh on my chest. I always keep this with me.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, I like your cross." And I was like, "Oh, it's not a cross. It's no, it's an Ankh." I was like, "But it is kind of a cross." And she's like, "Yeah, it was the original cross. It represents so much." And then, like,
Mhm.
she just walked off, because I have those random experiences where people say
Mhm.
some very deep things and then walk off. But
Right.
like, just even thinking about how all that related to, like, yoga, as far as like how you're putting it, like, and
Mhm.
seeing that when you're talking about how, like, you embody yoga through all your experiences, through everything you're doing, like, just even thinking about the aunt, thinking about, walking down the street, or even that lady saying that, bringing up those different things as you're going along. Like all of those are part of that like yogi practice of bringing it all together, of that oneness and not separating it all. Now you have the different aspects of it, but then it's all put together.
Yes.
But I wanted to ask you, so there's a lot of people who obviously can't wrap their heads around, that concept, because it's not a, as you say, masculine concept. It's not a cut and dry concept.
Mhm.
Now, when you're using your physical body for yoga, like in the postures and everything,
Mhm.
from my perspective, and I wanted to see if this resonates with you, or maybe you have, a deeper perspective on it. But when you're doing the postures and all that for yoga,
Mhm.
you're letting, you're basically moving your body in a way that allows the energy to flow in a certain pattern. Like
Mhm.
even, because that I'm really into crystal grids
Mhm.
and like just like grid energy in general. So
Mhm.
basically, like moving your body to basically align yourself into its own grid to allow the energy to flow in a certain way. And
Boom.
how beneficial that is for somebody starting off, because
Mhm.
it starts to let them, like when you say, like even the fact of you start doing more yoga, you start getting more flexible, you start, there's physical changes that happen from doing it over time,
Mhm.
but the energetic aspect of it too. Like,
Mhm.
so would you say that if they can't wrap their head around that subject, would it be beneficial to start with like a little bit of the posturing and then kind of adapting the mental and spiritual aspects to that? Or should they, and I know people can do it however way they want to, but I'm just
Mhm.
saying, like, as far as like in general, in your experience, what is like easier for somebody like starting off on their path of, should they start with like the whole mentality of everything is one, no, for the yogi, or start with your posturing and then kind of like incorporate different aspects to it?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And it definitely depends on the individual always and where they're ready, how ready they are for that. But absolutely with the postures, I mean, essentially, and even like even though I say all that, I still do asana every single day because I feel the benefits. Like when my body's not feeling good, it's like I need to get down and stretch. I got to move some energy. So even just those physical benefits of feeling good in your body, like that goes super far. But then exactly we get into the non-physical, and you're getting your body into specific alignments with the geometry of, we could say, the cosmos, the universe, whatever we want to look at that. But we're literally aligning ourselves to specific movements and postures that reflect nature and reflect the cosmos, and by doing that, exactly, we're allowing this energy to flow. So that's the thing with asana, and I mean, I don't even want to limit asana, because if you really do it correctly, you could reach the end goal with just an asana, but you would have to sit in that asana for 3 hours straight. So is
Yeah,
that better? Is that better when you're looking like a flamingo, or is that better when you're just sitting in a meditation pose, right? You know what I mean? It's like that's
right.
up to you. That's up to you. But in terms of like building yourself up for that experience, it's absolutely crucial. Yeah, I definitely recommend that. Anyone, just a few yoga stretches a day, um, can really be a catalyst to get some of these energies to start moving within the body, to allow your mind to even be ready to handle some of these loftier concepts and spiritualization of reality, because that, for people that experience it, it's like it makes so much sense. You're like, oh, that literally makes sense. Like, it's you start to reach that union in your daily life, and it really is like you're always in that alignment. You're always, yoga is alignment to the spine. So your spine being aligned is huge. Most of our posture is crap nowadays. So totally, the asana is, also, it's a key. Yeah, it's definitely a key. So I don't want to downplay the importance on it, but I want to express that without those other layers involved, asana is still only going to take you this far. It's only going to take you to, okay, now I feel good. Now my energy's moving in these ways, and you may start to tap in and a little bit naturally, a little bit of chakra activation, but depending on the seeker, that's where I would say, I personally say you need a little bit of all of it. If you movement, you need stillness. If you do movement, that means you need stillness, and if you do stillness, that means you need movement, because that's you can't really get to the stillness without that movement of energy, up, essentially upwards.
Hitting the
um
balance on both sides.
the balance on both sides, exactly, and then to have
Okay.
that divine energy to come down. So you want the physical energy to go up the spine, and then you want that divine energy to come down. This is when it meets in the heart chakra. So the crown chakra is great, getting the third eye, that's all cool, but we want to bring that energy back to the heart, because even the symbol of the anahata, we have the two triangles. We have the upward star. I don't have my necklace right now, I would have showed it, but we have the two stars, or the two triangles in the Star of David, or the Star Tetrahedron, which is also the Merkaba. And I'm not going to, get in it. We'll go into some other discussions, I'm sure, but I'm not going to, no, we're getting long here. So, but that shape also was in yoga. It was in many different cultures. You see that two pyramids or two triangles, and that's representing upwards masculine and downwards feminine. Where do they meet? In the heart chakra. So living from the heart chakra is where we actually can express the fullness, because when you're ready to leave, like, yeah, you're going to go out the crown. I mean, if that's where you're headed, if that's where you choose to go. Some people return, and that's their choice too, and they'll go to the root and they'll get recycled, and that's their choice.
Right.
But it's like, and everyone's experience, so it's like, it's really, what direction are you going, which is the question, and how far do you want to go there. Do you just want to live well, as in, do you want to feel good in your body and just have the essential practices? And we can do that. I think that's a great place to start. And eventually that may lead into the spiritual awakening. That may lead into wanting to know the tantras and the actual more mental, spiritual, all mixed in there. But the physical is the drawing board. So it's like, if you get what I'm saying,
Right.
it's like
Yes.
you can't cut out one or the other, and also you can't just say that one isn't going to get you there, because who am I to say that? Someone might have a asana practice and that's what they did, and they reached enlightenment, so who am I to say? I
Right.
don't know of yogis that have. That's my perception of it.
Okay.
They had to develop to these stages and get to the point to where they actually started to experience the higher mind, the higher intellect, which is unlocking the subconscious, which is generating the left and the right hemispheres, which is once again the Shiva and the Shakti uniting, and then that. So, anyways, I'm gonna end it there because
And actually, guys, like me and Brett are probably going to talk for a little bit longer, but as far as this podcast goes, you know, this went over a lot of information. We went through a bunch of different subjects, through sound healing, yoga mentality, and really and truly, like this, even for myself, like I learned so much throughout this conversation, and it's probably going to be some things that I got to reflect on. So, as always, guys, my gratitude for all of you, tuning in, and my gratitude for Brett for being here and actually explaining this stuff. When you guys go back and listen to this, because as I say, go back and listen to it multiple times, because there's going to be so many different things that you pick up. The first time you hear it, you're going to see and hear certain things. When you go back the second time, you're going to see and hear different things, because now you've had a different experience. You've had a different set of knowledge that's been incorporated into your being. So take some time and then actually go within and incorporate these things, act on these things. Don't just, think on it. Now, I'm not telling you not to go into the mentality and go into the mental realm of, looking back and observing, but after you've done that enough, and you know when it's enough. Nobody can tell you when it is, but you know when it's enough. A lot of people keep going past that, but you know. Once you get to that point, act on it. Go out there
yes,
and experience it. And then come back again and go back through and then think on it again, reflect on it again, and go to that next level. because that's how things go. And alarms are going off here now, because these are things that happen when you start to understand things on a different level. But yeah, so take that time to go within, and like I always say, hey, you just might find something out.
Mm.